Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Business, Housing, and Zoning Committee for February 4th, 2025. I'm Jamal Osman, and I am the chair of this committee. Before we begin the meeting, I want to offer a friendly reminder that all members, staff, and the public that this meeting are broadcasted live to enable greater public participation. This broadcast includes real-time captioning as further method to increase the accessibility of our proceeding to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that our captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask all speakers to moderate the speed and clarity of their comment. We'll be using speaker management for this meeting, so please make sure you are signed in so we can participate in discussion. At this time, I'll ask clerk to call the roll so we can verify a quorum.
Councilmember Rainville.
Present.
Cashman.
Present.
Jenkins.
Present.
Chowdhury.
Present.
Vice Chair Ellison.
Here.
Chair Osman.
Present.
There are 6 members present.
Let the record reflect we have a quorum. Before we proceed to the public hearing items on our agenda, we will first take up our consent agenda, which is item 5 through 12. Item 5 is approving 3 liquor license approval. Item 6 is approving 3 liquor license renewal. Item 7 is approving a rental dwelling license reinstatement for the property at 2008 21st Avenue North. Item 8 is authorizing 2025 Great Street Business District grant agreements. Item 9 is setting a public hearing for February 18, 2025 to consider administrative enforcement procedure ordinance. Item 10 is authorizing forgiveness of loan to Mercado Central for the neighborhood revitalization program. Item 11 is approving additional fund for 2025 housing tax credit for housing project at 2116 Nicollet Avenue. Lastly, item 12 is a passage resolution approving a guideline for the hate crime prevention technical assistance program. Are there any questions or further discussions on these items? Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask for number 12, Hate Crimes Prevention Technical Assistance Program, if I could be added as an author to that as well.
Yep. Clerk, please note that. Are there any other Councilmember Cashman?
Thank you, Chair Osman. I would like to also be added as a co-author on the Hate Crime Prevention Technical Assistance Guidelines, if that's all right. I also wanted to speak to number 8. So the Great Streets 2025 Business District Support Grant Agreements. Just wanted to note how excited I am to see a couple of uptown projects being funded in this round, including the farmers market that's being led by East Isles Neighbors and the Uptown Rising Together marketing campaign. So excited to see these projects come to life this year. And I also know, Uptown is going to be continuing to work with CPED staff on some additional grant proposals for the year. And just want to thank staff for getting this funding out to commercial corridors who really benefit from this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, I'll move approval for the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the motion carries. Before we proceed to the public hearing, I want to recognize Councilmember Fita, who has joined us in the meeting. First, we have a public hearing for liquor license application from Bar Harmony. I will have Phil Cottrell, for the brief presentation. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Thank you, Chair Osman and committee members. My name is Phil Cottrell, and I'm the lead inspector with Licenses and Consumer Services. I'm presenting an application from Bar Harmony, owned by Harmony Coffee LLC, at 501 First Avenue Northeast, located in Ward 3. The applicant is requesting an on-sale wine with strong beer license with limited entertainment. The hours of operation will be from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. daily, with the ability to adapt as business needs change. On January the 10th, 2025, public hearing notices were sent to property owners within 600 feet of the premises, Notices were sent to residents and property owners within 600 feet of the premises. Notices were also sent to the Nicollet Island East Bank Neighbourhood Organisation, St Anthony West Neighbourhood Organisation, the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, and Council Member Rainville. We haven't received any comments from the community. There have been no significant 311 or police calls that can be attributable to the business. The Licenses and Consumer Services Division recommends approval of a non-sale wine with strong beer license with limited entertainment for Bar Harmony. This concludes my presentation. At this time, I will stand for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I am going to proceed to open the public hearing. And are there anyone who would like to speak on this item? Welcome. Please state your name.
Hi, my name is Eric Hamlin. I'm the owner of the business, Bar Harmony, Cafe Harmony, LLC. We are applying for strong beer and wine service to accentuate our cafe offerings from the mornings. Yeah, we're really looking forward to having that for our customers.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I will recognize Councilmember Rainville to make a motion.
Thank you. And before I make the motion, I just want to thank you for coming down today. It's very important that I speak with you. And so I'd like to move this forward without recommendation to the full council and use that time so you and I can sit down and just talk about the concerns of the neighborhood. So there is a lot of housing very close to your place, and I just would like to talk about that.
Absolutely.
So before, could you, what's your phone number? Or maybe we don't want to say it publicly.
No, I think it's...
Oops. Yeah, maybe I can work with staff here and we can meet soon.
Sure. No, that sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So again, the motion is to move forward without recommendation.
Are there anyone who would like to speak on this item? See none, I'll close the public hearing and recognize Councilmember Allison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to support Councilmember Rainville's motion, but also, typically when we have folks who are coming to do business in our city, we do thank them for, the business that they're doing, and so I look forward to the conversation you're able to have with Councilmember Rainville. He's doing his due diligence on behalf of his constituents, but I also just want to say thank you for doing business in the city, and hopefully things go well and you're able to move forward.
Councilmember Cashman.
Yeah, thanks. I also just wanted to say that coffee is excellent, and I also love the interior design at Harmony Cafe. So look forward to visiting again now with this. Hopefully you get this new license opportunity.
Right. Seeing no one else on the motion for Councilmember Rainville, all those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Next, we have a public hearing for an application for the 1893 at the historic Grain Belt Office for rental, hall, and extended hours license. I welcome Akbar Mohammed for that presentation.
Thank you, Chair Osmond and committee members. I am Akbar Mohammed with Licenses and Consumer Services. I'm presenting the application from Entourage Events Group Incorporated, doing business as the 1893 at the historic Grain Belt Office, located at 1215 Marshall Street Northeast in Ward 3. The 1893 at the historic Grain Belt Office will have rental space for use for social, corporate, and fundraising events. Capacity will be 823 patrons, and hours during the rental can be between 7 a.m. and 12 midnight. On January 13th, 107 public hearing notices were sent to the property owners within 300 feet of the premises. Notices were also sent to the Sheridan Neighborhood Organization, Northeast Minneapolis Chamber Business Association, and the council member Rainville. We have received one comment, with the community showing support. A review of complaints, 311 calls, police calls, and operating conditions show no significant issues concerning the business or issuance of this license. The License and Consumer Services Division recommends approval of the rental license with extended hours. This concludes my presentation. At this time, I stand for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I'm going to proceed to open the public hearing. Are there anyone who would like to speak on this item? See none, I'll close the public hearing and recognize Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you. I'm going to move approval of this, and I do want to tell my fellow colleagues I had a chance to speak to some of the neighbors. They are in support, and there is no history of any problems at this location as well.
Great. With that motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. All right, our next item is an appeal. It's a quasi-judicial appeal hearing regarding the decision of the Heritage Preservation Commission, which denied demolition of historic resource application for the property at 3120 Washburn Avenue North. This hearing was open at our last meeting and remains open. Right now, I will welcome Rob from CBED to give us that presentation. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Chair Osman, and good afternoon, council members. My name is Rob Skalecki. I'm a senior city planner in the Historic Preservation section of the Planning Division. Today I'm presenting an appeal of the HPC's December 16th, 2024 decision to deny the demolition of historic resource application for the property located at 3120 Washburn Avenue North, historically known as the Pilgrim Heights Community Church. This appeal item, as noted, was continued from the January 21st, 2025 Business, Housing, and Zoning Committee meeting to today's meeting. The subject property includes a masonry church built in the modern style. The building includes minimal ornamentation, a prominent front gable A-frame form, and clear-story window bands below the eaves. The community and educational wings are to the south end of the building and were completed at the same time as the church section to the north. Pilgrim Congregational Church was established in 1873. In 1947, Pilgrim Congregational Church and Forest Heights Congregational Church merged to form Pilgrim Heights Community Church. They were located at 14th and Lyndale Avenues North. The success of the merger prompted the congregation to seek a more contemporary building in a more suitable location for their members. Permit records suggest that the foundation for the new superstructure began construction in 1952, and the new building was completed in 1953, as designed by architects McEnery and Kraft. The building's design was documented in a few early modern era sources that captured notable new construction. The building was featured in the November 22nd, 1953 Minneapolis Sunday Tribune article on modern church design in the metro area. The article highlighted some of the most prominent recent modern church designs at that point, and inclusions of churches in this article is noteworthy. The church was also recorded in the 1955 book Twin Cities Architecture, Minneapolis and St. Paul from 1820 to 1955 by Harlan McClure. McClure called out the church for its limited budget design that includes worship and education spaces for their suburban congregation. Pilgrim Heights merged with the Fremont Congregational Church in 1966 to become Parkway United Church of Christ at this location. On October 14th, 2022, CPED staff determined that the subject property appeared to be a historic resource through a historic review letter. That letter concluded that the subject property appeared eligible for landmark designation under Minneapolis Designation Criterion 4 for architecture as a characteristic example of a modern church designed in the modern Gothic or A-frame subtype. The property also appeared to be eligible under Criterion 6 at that time of the historic review letter as work of master architects McEnery and Kraft. The Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office had determined the church as eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places in July 2021. The applicant is proposing to demolish the building on the parcel. This required a demolition of historic resource application to be submitted and heard by the Heritage Preservation Commission. A demolition of historic resource application was submitted and scheduled for the December 16th, 2024 HPC meeting. In evaluating if the demolition can be approved, the Minneapolis Heritage Preservation Ordinance requires the following findings to be considered. 1, that the destruction is necessary to correct an unsafe or dangerous condition at the property, or 2, that there are no reasonable alternatives to the destruction. In determining whether reasonable alternatives exist, the Commission shall consider, but not be limited to, the significance of a property, the integrity of the property, and the economic value or usefulness of the existing structure, including its current use, costs of renovation, and feasible alternative uses. Considering additional research and the applicant's materials, CPED staff recommended that the Heritage Preservation Commission approve the demolition of historic resource application, given the property appeared to lack significance that would make it worthy of landmark designation. In CPED's review, the subject property does not appear eligible for local designation. Staff no longer considered the property eligible under Criterion 4 as a significant example of a church designed in the modern or modern Gothic style. While the building is one of the older examples of a modern Gothic or A-frame church in the city, the property is not the best example of this specific, albeit popular, subtype. Staff believes that the design of the subject building alone is not enough of a distinction to suggest it possesses the required significance to be considered for landmark status. Over the past 5 years, staff have been able to complete additional research to give a fuller picture of the quantity and quality of remaining modern Gothic or A-frame churches within the city. Multiple examples of this very common church style still exist in Minneapolis, and there's currently not enough evidence to suggest that the property is worthy of distinction when compared to other examples that embody these distinctive characteristics of the modern Gothic or A-frame subtype. So as such, CPED found that the property was not eligible under Criterion 4. Staff also does not believe that the property is eligible under Criterion 6 for exemplifying the work of master architects. Of all the remaining McHenry and Kraft designed buildings in Minneapolis, the most notable appear to have been non-ecclesiastical. The extant Mahala Fisk Pillsbury Club building or Farmers and Mechanics Bank building appear to be more in line with the residential or commercial buildings that the firm is best known for designing. So upon further research, there's not enough evidence to show that the Pilgrim Heights Community Church exemplifies the work of McHenry and Kraft, and CPED found the property to not be eligible under local criteria 6. Staff concluded that the property does not retain the significance to be considered for local landmark designation. Therefore, CPED found the property not eligible for local landmark status and recommended to approve the demolition. Notwithstanding staff recommendation, the HPC denied the demolition at their December 16th, 2024 meeting. The HPC made the following findings. The church appears to embody the distinctive characteristics of an architectural style of the mid-century style A-frame church and retains sufficient integrity required to be considered for landmark designation under Criterion 4. It may also have significance under Criterion 6 as it exemplifies the work of master architects and is among the best of the examples of the firm's religious structures in Minneapolis. The HPC agreed that CPED staff findings, agreed with staff findings that the demolition is not necessary to correct an unsafe or dangerous condition at the property and that there are reasonable alternatives to that demolition. Therefore, the Commission denied the demolition of historic resource application. They established interim protection and direct the planning director to prepare or cause to be prepared a designation study. The applicant submitted an appeal application following the HPC's decision. The BIS hearing for the appeal was noticed for January 21st, 2025, and it was continued to today's meeting. Staff have received some written public comments, and those have been included in the public meeting record for BIS committee's consideration. At the January 21st, 2025 Business, Housing, and Zoning Committee meeting, there were 3 members of the public who spoke in opposition to the demolition. These community members noted concerns about demolishing a National Register eligible property, how the demolition can affect surrounding properties, the conditions of the property currently and its deterioration and lack of care, concerns about the proposed new construction design, dissatisfaction with the responses from the developer, and desire to keep the property a church and part of the community. And with that, the appellant is here and will give a statement, but I am available for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to proceed with the hearing, and I will grant appellant 10 minutes to speak at this item, and then I'll have everybody else sign up to speak for 2 minutes. Welcome, sir.
My name is Sean Huckleby. I represent the developer, Premier Development, and I also represent their co-developer, the Housing Trust. Also with us are members of our team: Chris Brogan, who has done the community outreach for us; Amy Lucas, who is the historic preservation specialist that we retain to review the project and its historic significance. We also have our architect, David Witt, here, and we also have our consultant who helped package our proposal together, Sarah Larson, who is here with us today. Just very briefly, because they have the more important things to talk about, is that...
Real quick,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to let you know, you can call up any of those folks within your 10 minutes as well.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll be calling them all up. I just wanted to say that we think this is a very important project for the neighborhood. It's a new construction, affordable housing project. It's a transit-oriented development. We feel that the project will add to the quality of the neighborhood. And we've been working on this project since before the pandemic and the quarantine. We were approached by the church regarding the project and making sure that we offered a alternative, because they did not want to remain in the church and they wanted to move on to a different location. So I'll bring Chris Brogan up, who will talk about the efforts that we had with the church to design a project that met their criteria. Chris.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Councilmember Vito. I'm Chris Brogan. I am the real estate broker who negotiated the sale of this property, and I was contracted with the Parkway UCC Church in 2019 to find a buyer. And they had already decided to merge with another congregation, and they had this property they wanted to get rid of. The church leadership developed a list of criteria that was crucial to their consideration in the sale of the property. The result brought 4 proposals from well-seasoned affordable housing developers who were interested in the site for specific purpose of creating much-needed, high-quality, affordable housing in North Minneapolis. The leadership team reviewed the proposals, met with each of the development organizations, and thoroughly discussed the proposals. And at a special meeting of the congregation, the proposals were presented. The members reviewed the criteria, noted the financials of each offer, asked important questions, and came to a decision to select Premier Development Parkway Housing Partners. The sale of the property, the sale of the property, including allowing the congregation to remove several items that included the kitchen equipment and items from the sanctuary, including the organ, the cross, the stained glass windows, and pews. All of this in anticipation that the building would be demolished. The sale was completed in March of 2020. First draft plans for the project included the reuse of some of the building structure, but unfortunately the building itself is not appropriate space for renovations for housing. It was determined that the current structure had significant faults and needed to be removed. Parkway Housing Partners has been in regular contact with the Jordan Area Community Council, 4th Ward City Council Member's Office, the Mayor's Office, Hennepin County Commissioner's Office, and in addition, several community meetings have been held to discuss the physical features of a new building, which are important to the community. The responses and insights from those meetings provided relevant input on the design and function of the proposed building. Parkway Housing Partners has incorporated several of the design elements that were identified by the community in the plans for the Warren. In the summer of 2024, Parkway Housing Partners reached out to nearby neighbors regarding the upcoming HPC meeting. That effort led to a community meeting where the project was discussed and comments taken and referred to the developer. Many of those comments are reflected in the design elements identified by the community meetings in 2023. The church congregation, the community organizations, elected officials, and the public agree that there is a vital need for quality, affordable housing in the community. It is fitting that this former church building, which has been vacant since 2019, be demolished and the site redeveloped for that purpose. Thank you very much. And now we'll hear from Sarah Larson.
Hello, Sarah Larson Landing Group. The Warren, I just want to reiterate, is fully funded. It is a $27.5 million investment. It has funding from the city, state, and county. It has $2.2 million committed in the Affordable Housing Trust from the city of Minneapolis. It aligns with the funder priority, and the developer to date has invested and leveraged their own funds to move it forward.
Now we have our architect, David Witt, to talk about the design of the building.
Yeah. Hello, David Witt with Mobilized Design Architecture. Just a couple of quick points I want to make to the group here. We did look at the constraints of trying to design within an existing A-frame church. It's really extremely difficult because of the unique nature of the A-frame to make anything else kind of work in there. It's not a church, so we studied that. Housing really doesn't work, or at least not be able to make the housing affordable. A couple of points about the church itself. It was done at a time where the church was built very economically, so it does not possess a lot of the details that you might find of an A-frame style church of this period, and there's other better examples of it. And whatever good stuff was left was taken out by the congregation. I would also note that the building isn't been hit by vandals and so forth, so everything pretty much nailed down has been stripped out of the church, copper, electrical, mechanical, and really there's a lot of mold in the building and peeling paint and so forth, so bringing that back to anything usable is very difficult. One other thing we would also recommend is that towards the end of last year, the building was posted for condemnation by the city of Minneapolis, and we were informed this week that condemnation proceedings will be beginning this week. One thing I also want to note for people who had some comment on the project is that we'll be going through the land use application process, so there'll be other public hearings, other forums to present any concerns they might have on the new design of the project or how the building is, technically how it gets demolished. So there will be plenty of opportunities for the public and concerned neighbors to voice their opinion, and we'll be able to work with them on the project. Then I'll give it on to Amy.
And finally, our historic preservation consultant, Amy Lucas. There you go, Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Lucas with Landscape Research, and I completed the evaluation on the church itself, and I just have 5 quick points. One is a very similar church. In September of 2022, the HPC staff recommended and the Preservation Commission approved the demolition of an A-frame church, an earlier church by a better master architecture firm, the Lake Harriet Christian Church. It's by Magny and Tussler, 1950. And in this case, we're here because HPC staff did recommend approval of the church, and HPC's commission denied it. A-frame churches are the most common church type in the United States. There's one in every town in Minnesota. There's one in Tofte, Schroeder, Minnesota. It is listed as the most common modernist church type. World War II, the population exploded, and so did church membership. They're simple, cheap, fast designs. Minneapolis has many other examples. Lake Harriet Methodist, Bethel Evangelical, Word of Grace Baptist, St. Peter's AME, I could go on. 3, a previous evaluation was completed on this church as part of the MnDOT project in 2012 for the Bottineau Transitway Survey. And Rob did a great job talking about this church, but the State Historic Preservation Office, the consultant that did that report said that the church was not eligible for the National Register, not historic. The Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office, they came back. They did not say the building was a National Register worthy. They asked that it be considered remaining on a potential list and that in the future someone complete a monograph of the architecture firm McGarrity and Craft. Number 4, McGarrity and Craft, prolific architects. They did the downtown public library that the Minneapolis tore down and built the new library. They did F&M Bank. They have done a number of churches. They've done A-frame churches, Pilgrim Heights, Peace Presbyterian in St. Louis Park, Calvary Episcopal in Rochester, Chapel Hills Congregational Dino. Those are just their A-frames. They did modernist churches. They did institution buildings. It would be a lot to do a monograph of them. When consultants get that kind of budget, MnDOT pays for it, and usually they get to write a book when they're done. So it hasn't been done. The last point is 2 previous evaluations were done on modern churches in general. One being a modern church context study that said, and I'll go super fast, that talked about there's one church left. The earliest and best example of an A-frame church is actually in Minneapolis. So it's 6 years earlier than Pilgrim Heights. It's St. Francis Cabrini, Minnesota Modern, Larry Millette.
Thank you.
Everyone acknowledges that being the best church in the city 6 years earlier than this one.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Next, I'll have anyone who sign up. City Clerk? Are there anyone who would like to speak on this item? Yes, please come on in and state your name.
My name is Bridget Thummel. You may remember me from 2 weeks ago. My concerns still stand. The design of this building is not consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. I know that they've said that there is opportunity to work on that with them. We thought we did that 3 months ago.
Mr. Chair, I apologize for interrupting, but I believe that this speaker has already spoken during the public hearing, and it would be out of the ordinary to allow 2 cracks at the
I'm sorry. You were here a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Are there anyone who would like to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and recognize Councilmember Ellison or Councilmember Vita, who's from the district.
Thank you so much, Chair. Of course, I came to speak to this. Thanks for the presentation from staff, and thank you to the Ward 4 residents who have come today about this matter. We've had a lot of communication about this in the neighborhood. I know more people wish they could have come but weren't able to. So just so we're clear, I learned about this project in 2021, actually, and in talking about this project, it was exciting to know that affordable housing was going to come to the community. What I talked to this group about, though, was how the church would be preserved and affordable housing would be added to it. So one of the big things community has spoke up about was the sanctuary, the church sanctuary. It means a lot to community. It's a beautiful space, and the owners of this property told me at that time that not only was that sanctuary going to be preserved, but it would be used for community meetings and these sort of things along with this project. So that's clearly changed. And I don't think that community is against having affordable housing. I think the opposite. Community welcomes affordable housing in this space, but they feel like there's been a bait and a switch on how we get an affordable housing project in this space. The second thing is there's been an overwhelming amount of complaints on the upkeep of this property as is in the last 3 years. A lot, especially during the winter time. There's currently a lot of complaints about the snow. There's an open electrical box. I know they're saying that the property has been taken over by people. I've reached out to people to let them know that there were people in there. I saw no activity on securing the building, nor getting people out, nor working to make sure that people didn't get back in. So, neighbors are really upset with how this property has been kept, the effect that it's had on the neighborhood, how it's been, it's just been let go. There's no plowing. There's no grass removal. There's people are in and out of this property. This is a very small area with a lot of families. There's actually a pastor that lives right across the street that has reached out about could he rent the church for his services. This is a very residential block. And so there's been an overwhelming amount of complaints about the upkeep. And I just want to end with saying, I support the Heritage Preservation Commission's report on studying this for potential historic significance. I really do think that having the time to do that matters a lot to this community to figure out if it is if it should be preserved as a historical landmark. And the property and the project has been sitting. I know how important affordable housing is to this community, but I also know that people in this neighborhood really want to see this historical preservation designation through. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It always makes me nervous to be at odds with my Northside counterpart, just because I know she's a fierce advocate for her ward. But I do feel like there's a couple of things that I want to speak on to this item. One is that it sounds like, we as council members, we in our communities experience these properties, these as holistically, right? But in a quasi-judicial matter, we've got to split hairs a little bit here, right? We can't speak to the efficacy of affordable housing when we're talking about this issue. It's not. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Attorney, but it's not germane to the issue at hand. What we're talking about at hand is the demolition of the historic site. I don't know that we can start to discuss the architecture of a future building, when that's what we're here to discuss. We've also seen, even when it comes to, I'm hearing what Councilmember Vita is saying about the upkeep of this site. That is something that needs to be addressed. And so I hope that Reg Services, I hope that the council member, I hope that the owner of the property can all get together to talk with community about shoveling, about plowing, about securing the site to make sure people aren't living in there. But that's also an issue, Again, Mr. Attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can't compel, this isn't an appropriate avenue to compel those kinds of changes on the site, or would it?
Thank you, Chair Osman, Councilmember Ellison, committee members. You are correct. This is a narrow quasi-judicial matter. I certainly respect and understand that it's one part of a larger potential development, and those are critically important issues that wrap in a lot of very important issues for the city. But reviewing courts will restrict the city's review in this matter to the record that's before it, not to any contacts or meetings that may have been taken place in prior years, and not with regards to the proposed development on the back end, but to the findings that are required and that are enumerated in the staff report. If you look at kind of the competing findings, because we do have a set of findings from the staff report that recommend approval of the demolition, and then we have a set of findings from the Heritage Preservation Commission, which recommend denial of the application for demolition. And the only respects in which they differ are with regard to criteria 4 and 6 in the landmark designation study. There's been some discussion about that, quite a bit of discussion, as there should be, with regard to those criterion and those findings that need to be made, and whether some of the issues are whether this is the best example of this type of architecture, other things along those lines. But I would, in terms of guidance, this committee's decision needs to be based purely on the required findings that are enumerated in the staff report. And that's not for closing one side or the other, because two different bodies came to different conclusions with regard to those required findings, but it is those findings that are at issue here today, and not enforcement issues on the property, and not potential design components of a future development, which would need to have a pretty intensive land use review in the future as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm glad it's all coming up, because it sounds like some conversations really need to happen. But I also want to acknowledge the narrow scope in which we're making our decision. And then one thing that I wanted to ask staff was about the process of preserving the property. If we deny the demo, the site doesn't become like a historically significant site. There's still a process that needs to occur, right, in order for that to happen. And what's the timeline on that process?
Thank you, Chair Osman and Councilmember Ellison. You're correct. If you deny, if you uphold the HPC's denial, it does, the HPC already kicked off what's called a designation study. So the property is currently under interim protection for a year. So within that year's time, it really falls on staff to compile a study and put together everything we can find out about the property to see if it does rise to that level. So that's correct.
And at the end of that year, it could not rise to that level.
That's correct.
Right. And so, thank you. That's all the question I have there. And so I'm glad that this holistic view of the property is coming up. I hope the owners are hearing that. I hope that folks are ready to get in contact with neighbors, with Councilmember Vita. I hope that if there was a promise or a commitment to maintain a sanctuary and a community space, I hope that can be met. But regardless of that, even if there was going to be a sanctuary in a new building, this one would still need to be demoed. And so for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and move to grant the appeal and allow for the demo to move forward. And I hope my colleagues can get any other questions they have answered. But I do think that the evidence is pointing us in that direction.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Ellison. I'll recognize Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you. So 2 weeks ago, some residents brought forth, and I put a copy for all of you there, that there's some security issues. Is there someone here in charge of that property can speak to why this hasn't been corrected? This picture is from yesterday.
Thank you, Councilmember. Would I have the opportunity to view that closer? My
Absolutely.
name is Kate Haig.
Can one of you guys run that down? Thanks.
I can run over to it. Kate Haig, I represent Premier Housing Management and Development. I'm the vice president of the firm. So we have a sinking of concrete. Is that what I'm looking at here?
It's a utility box that's open.
A utility box?
An access panel, access box. I'm not an architect, so I don't know the exact name, but.
Okay. Candidly, this has just come to my attention just now, is not something that I was aware of, that I'm not aware that my firm was aware of. If we had been, I certainly would have engaged people to work through that. There are no active utility services to this building, nor have there been in several years, but it is certainly something that we should take a look at and remedy.
Can you see where a child or a pet would fall in there that is dangerous?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And becoming aware of it and having that conversation allows me to solve it.
So none of the representatives from this organization that were here 2 weeks ago informed you that the request was to fix that dangerous situation?
No.
Is it possible to send an inspector out there and make sure that there's some type of corrective action? Obviously, they said they would fix it, but that was 2 weeks ago and that did not happen. Is there some enforcement action we can take?
May I ask who they is?
Whoever the representatives were here 2 weeks ago for the public hearing.
There was nobody from our organization here 2 weeks ago. We asked for a continuance to this meeting.
I'm not saying your organization. I'm saying someone from the church, the development, whoever's behind this project.
Correct. None of us were present at last meeting.
And I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying it's unfortunate that you were not informed when we were promised that you would be.
Councilmember, this might have to be an offline. We do have to stay on the topic, I believe, at hand, and I think that we're veering a little far off. And I agree that enforcement conversations should be happening. I don't know that they can happen on this item on the dais here right now.
And I appreciate the advice. Thank you very much. I'm going to vote against this. I think we should take a much more long-term approach to the destruction of this church.
All right, I'll recognize Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Chair Osman. While you're up here, I do have one question for you, which is something that I've struggled with a lot of new housing development, is just, this is all rental housing, correct?
Correct.
And can you explain why you didn't go for a condo route where the folks who move in can actually build wealth based on their housing instead of just a rental model?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this project. To your note, Councilmember, we did evaluate a lot of different options for this community. I have only been involved in the project for the last 2 years, so I apologize that I cannot speak to prior commitments made. However, reuse of the space was evaluated and was found not to be financially feasible, especially with the building having been broken into and affected by, the civil unrest. There's no copper, there's no heating, there's no systems of any sort in the place. So we have evaluated lots of different ways to finance and utilize this space. Minneapolis needs affordable housing. We are seeking to support those at the lowest income brackets, including high-priority homeless and people with disabilities. So that is why condo service was not chosen for this community. We specifically are seeking to provide housing for those in need.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind that we want to remain on topic.
Yeah, that's my bad. I just wanted to take the opportunity to ask about that. But I will be supporting the motion to grant the appeal to allow this demolition to move forward. I actually spoke with a Ward 7 resident who was a parishioner at this church going back 55 years ago. And so he told me the long story of how they, as the church community started to dwindle and they started to lose their resources, they decided to consolidate their congregation with another and moved into another congregation and then looked at what do we do with our property, this church property, and who to sell it to. And the parishioners, it was a priority of theirs that it would become affordable housing at this level. And this is a resident of mine who's in his 80s who wants to see this through. And I think that if we hold up the demolition, we're then holding up the development of affordable housing indefinitely. And I want to see this housing, this affordable housing come to fruition and in the next chapter, and I want to see their former congregation's wishes come to fruition. So I will vote to on the motion to grant the appeal. Thank you.
All right. I will recognize Councilmember Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair Osman. My question, there was a mention of condemnation of the building, and I'm curious from staff, what is that process? What does that mean?
I'll recognize Director Enrique.
Thank you, Chair Osman, Councilmember Jenkins. I'll have to look into that. I don't have the details of the condemnation at the moment.
If it were condemned, would we require the owner to demolish the building?
Chair Osmond, Councilmember Jenkins, it all depends on what's the nature of the condemnation. If the condemnation is due to boards on the windows, then we would require that the boards are removed. If there are other life safety or other safety elements that are egregious, we would require that the building be brought up to the current code, but there's nothing that I can think of at present that would require the building to be demolished unless it was in such disrepair that the structure itself was unstable and posed an imminent safety risk.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you. I was just looking at the staff report and then the HPC, and this is probably a question for our staff.
Okay, just guys sit down then. Thank you.
Yeah, don't want to make you stand there forever. There seems to be a significant difference between the HPC and staff findings on criterion number 6, exemplifying the work of master architects. Within the staff report, it discusses that this was designed by an architect group that is considered a master architect, but it does not exemplify their work. And I'm wondering if you can kind of detail how staff got to that conclusion, and then how did HPC get to a different conclusion?
Thank you, Chair Osman, Councilmember Chowdhury. That is something that staff did discuss internally at length to talk about if that would be, the best example of this firm's work. The staff report evaluation and through the research we did determine that churches themselves aren't to the level that would exemplify the firm's work. The buildings that we noted, the Mahala Fisk Pillsbury Club, the Farmers and Mechanics Bank. Farmers and Mechanics Bank is currently known as the Westin Hotel downtown. That's one that is National Register listed, but not locally designated as a landmark. So there are different examples that when we're looking at the body of this firm's work, that we see other areas where these buildings would be worthy of designations, and it doesn't necessarily fall on the church buildings that they designed. And I believe the Heritage Preservation Commission just disagreed with that and maybe thought differently, so there was an element of disagreement there.
Gotcha. And then just going back to something that you mentioned before, there would be a year-long stay should a demolition permit be granted, correct? Before demolition can continue because HPC is doing some sort of study. Could you clarify that again?
Sure, yeah. So the study actually goes away if the demolition is granted approval. If the denial of demolition is upheld and goes forward, at their meeting on December 16th, the Heritage Preservation Commission, per ordinance, is required to, if they're going to deny a building, also place it under interim protection and then call for that designation study. So if the demolition is, the denial is upheld, that study does have to continue. If the HPC's denial is overturned and the demolition is approved, then that study would not happen anymore. So the property could receive a wrecking permit approval from that point forward.
That makes sense. And should the study proceed, there are two outcomes. It's either designated as historical or not. And if it's designated as historical, then there's a level of preservation that needs to occur. If it's not, the property owner could move forward on whatever they would like to do and not have to stick within the constraints of historical preservation. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. One thing to note as well is that while the property is under interim protection, it is subject to all preservation reviews through the city. So if the applicant were to submit a permit for exterior work right now, that's something our team would generally require application review for. So, but it is the same process. That's correct that you mentioned. If it eventually would go forward and it's studied, and through the study it's determined by council that it actually is not worthy of landmark status a year later, and that designation is denied, then the property owner could at that point demolish the building. Otherwise the opposite, or the other side of it is that if it is designated, then it is subject in perpetuity essentially to preservation ordinance regulations.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just note, I think staff makes a pretty good case on criteria number 4 that the property embodies distinctive characteristics of an architectural or engineering type or style or method of construction. Staff is saying that it does not, and it's worth looking at what they've laid out and the number of churches that do have that type of designation. I do see that there's a clear separation. Right now, I am inclined to support the permit. I know we've had different discussions up here. I would just say I would be remiss to say that it is deeply regrettable that maintenance of the property hasn't continued while under ownership. We as a city across the board expect everyone to be good neighbors to one another, and I really do appreciate and understand the concerns that community members have brought up. That is deeply regrettable.
All right, thank you. I just want to remind the members that we have a lengthy agenda today, and we have to be out of here by 4:15. I'll recognize Councilmember Jenkins. Oh. Oh, excellent. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. That's all. I will have City Clerk to call the roll for Councilmember Allison's motion.
On the motion of Allison's move to grant the appeal, I'll start with Councilmember Rainville.
No.
Cashman.
Aye.
Jenkins. Chowdhury.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ellison.
Aye.
Chair Osman.
Aye.
There are 4 ayes and 2 nays.
All right, that motion passes. Now we have another quasi-judicial certificate of appropriateness appeal hearing regarding the decision of Heritage Preservation Commission. I'll ask Aaron Kay to speak on this item. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Osman and committee members. My name is Erin Kay, and I'm a senior city planner in historic preservation in the Department of Community Planning and Economic Development, or CPED. I am here today to present an appeal of a condition of the Heritage Preservation Commission, or HPC's, approval of a certificate of appropriateness application for the property located at 204 Fifth Avenue Southeast in the St. Anthony Falls Historic District. I'll briefly introduce the project, summarize the HPC's decision, and summarize the appeal. Here is an aerial view of the property's location and a photo of the property's front elevation. The house was built circa 1902 and is considered a contributing resource to the St. Anthony Falls Historic District. The applicant is proposing to make several exterior alterations to the property, including window and door replacement, replacement of a side staircase with a balcony, and modifications to the front stoop and rear deck. The next 2 slides show each of the 4 sides of the house. What is planned to be removed is in red, and what is proposed is on the right side of each slide. On January 7th, 2025, this application was heard by the HPC. Staff recommended approval with 5 conditions. The HPC adopted staff findings and modified the wording of 2 conditions. They ultimately approved the application with 5 conditions. The applicant agrees with the conditions, with one exception, which is the focus of the appeal before you, and relates to whether or not historic windows should be repaired or replaced at the property. Here are representative photos of historic windows found at the property. In the HBC's discussion of the item, they agreed with staff's analysis and felt that there was not enough evidence provided to show that the windows are deteriorated beyond repair in order to justify replacement. The application indicated that the windows leak and are very drafty. In the HBC's opinion, the photographs provided suggested that the windows could be repaired instead of replaced. Staff's recommendation in the HPC's decision was based on the Historic District's design guidelines and the Secretary of the Interior standards, which indicate that repair is generally preferred before replacement, especially with historic materials. The appellant is the property owner, and they are asking that you strike condition number 3 as follows. Historic double-hung picture, leaded, and casement windows shall be repaired and not replaced. In particular, the leaded windows and transom shall be retained. In their appeal, they provided more specific detail about the condition of the windows than was included in their application. They describe extensive water damage to the property, which has impacted the condition of the walls and windows. They note concerns about rotten wood, broken parts, and mold. They assert that more than half of the windows have missing or non-functioning parts. They've expressed concern that some windows may not be up to code and that the current array of windows are a mismatch of various types. Staff recognize that some of the issues may be difficult to see in static photographs, so it is helpful to have this additional context before you. If you choose to grant the appeal and strike condition number 3, it would not be necessary to make new findings. Staff have not received any public comments either for the HPC meeting on January 7th or for today's hearing. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to stay for questions. The appellant, Craig Harris, is also here and would like to give a presentation.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, first I will have the appellant to come speak for 10 minutes, and then anybody else who sign up can come and speak. Welcome.
Hello, thanks. I'm Craig Harris. Thanks, Chair Osman and council members, for the careful consideration of our request that's before you and for providing me with an opportunity to speak for a few minutes about this house. We submitted a detailed appeal. I know your time's limited, so I'm going to be brief, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. My wife, Candy Keene, and I moved into an early 20th century home in Marcy Homes in 1994, and we've been committed to and active in the neighborhood now for 3 decades. We took ownership of a second home, this one near St. Anthony, Maine, that was in serious disrepair when we acquired it. We obtained a $500,000 loan to remodel the home and its adjacent carriage house. The carriage house is now completed, and it looks impeccable. As you go down 2nd Street Southeast, the carriage house is the most prominent feature that you see on the property. It has brand-new windows and are in line with the historic nature of the property, and this was approved by HPC in 2017. Our intent is to bring the main house to the same high level of finish as the carriage house, bringing it up to a level of efficiency that's appropriate to preserving the home and ensuring that it'll be standing for years to come. We appreciate the work that HPC does, and we're grateful that they approved our renovation plans. As you know, we're appealing this condition about repairing existing windows. Now, we've gone through this process with HPC to repair the home's exterior. This was in desperate need of replacement in many areas, and the process has been lengthy and arduous, and we're disappointed that we didn't get the opportunity to replace these windows with newer, upgraded windows, and that we're forced to keep the windows which are old and disrepair and will not stand the test of time. As you can see from our contractor's testimonial, finding someone to repair the wood windows that HPC wants us to keep would be near impossible, very difficult. Even if we could find somebody to do the work, it would be extremely expensive and time-consuming, and it would likely add many thousands of additional dollars and take several more months to finish the project. Currently, the 1970s storm windows are in front of most of the old windows, so you can't even visually see the originals. Because the old windows are single-pane windows, we'd have to put on new storm windows to protect the house anyway from the Minnesota winters. So the historic windows, even if repaired, wouldn't be seen very well. Now, we understand the value of historic windows. We'd love to be able to do that, but it's just not practical in this case. And we think it's not in the best interest of the house, and it's unfair. First, because they approved the window and door replacement on the carriage house on the same property already with no issue. And second, they approved the same requests for full window and door replacements for the neighbors directly to the north. Passersby will not see the home as an example of preserved architecture, but more as a mismatch of renovation that sticks out like a sore thumb. We're asking for the same consideration that was allowed for the carriage house and for the neighbor's house, so we're able to create a beautifully renovated historic house that's economically and ecologically sustainable and aesthetically is consistent with the look of the carriage house and the neighbor's house. We believe this is the best approach to preserving this iconic home. Thanks for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much. We'll continue to proceed the public hearing. Are there anyone who would like to speak on this item? See none, I'll close the public hearing, and also I'll recognize Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you. I'm going to move to uphold this appeal. I say that because of the willingness of the applicant to spend $500,000 on this deteriorated house. Your willingness to approve it is well taken. And you should be treated the same as the carriage house was treated and your neighbor treated in the window chase. It's a question of fairness and equity. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Allison.
Didn't move fast enough to remove myself from queue, but just wanted to say I agree with Councilmember Rainville and you know, for all the reasons that he stated.
Sure. Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Chair. One question for staff. When you're doing this assessment, and I apologize if this is in the packet, do you look into the feasibility as in if there is a contractor who can do this, as the appellant raised that was an issue, that there's not a contractor available to even do this work?
Chair Osmond, Councilmember Cashman, thanks for the question. Assessing the feasibility of the work is not something that we specifically explore. However, in our expertise working with past projects, we are familiar with various contractors who do historic window repair projects. One of the discussions of the HPC members, which includes several architects, was the ability to potentially repair windows. That being said, I think with the information presented in the appeal, there may have been greater concerns with these current windows than were fully elaborated when the HPC heard the item.
Okay, so does the HPC then give recommendations on these contractors then to the property owners that they're working with?
At this particular hearing, they did not make recommendations. I don't know if that typically happens, but we often direct our applicants to a preservation specialist directory through the Minnesota Historical Society if they're looking for potential contractors.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Seeing none, all those, Councilmember Rainville's motion to grant the appeal, all those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the motion carries. All right, we are on discussion. Item 13 is a discussion item related to the public hearing we had two meetings ago concerning the Lowry Handy Stop application for extended hours of operation license. I'll ask Manager Amy Lingo to provide us with update.
Good afternoon, Chair Osman, committee members, thank you. My name is Amy Lingo. I'm the Manager for Licensing and Consumer Services. This is the continued application for the Lowry Handy Stops extended hours application for their gas station. The request was for 24 hours a day with for the pumps and a service window from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. This business has been in operation since 2007, and it is an administrative correction to be able to get their license to be right-sized, because this is how they've been operating since 2007. We have had meetings with the community as concerns came the day before the public hearing, and we had meetings with the community. I also had meetings with the police department and the owner, and we have come up with a plan to help address the concerns from the committee, or from the neighborhoods, where we're going to work on some signage and to deal with some of the concerns that happen overnight. And the police department and I are recommending approval for this license at this time.
Thank you so much. Are there any discussions with the members? I see Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Chair Osman. There's a motion in front of you. It's printed off for all committee members. I'm going to move to approve the application for extended hours of operation, but upon a new condition being added, which requires the applicant to provide licensed security to be present between 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. when open and operating. We heard from a lot of community members about safety concerns here. There was a very high number of 911 calls related to this gas station, and I think it's important that the neighbors' safety concerns be taken seriously, that we balance their concerns with, the financial viability of this business, but both sides need to be able to compromise, and I think requiring some security to be provided between 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. is a reasonable request in order to maintain their 24-hour extended hour license. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cashman. I would myself queue, and I have a question. This motion came not that long ago. I think it was this morning when I saw it. And thank you first for the staff and for the owner and also the resident to kind of meeting and coming together and coming up some kind of plan, but. Requiring a security, I can imagine the cost of the owner and can you talk about a little bit more about the data, around that time? What is the 911 calls? What is the crime statistics when you hear from the police officers or the inspector in that area? If you can talk about a little bit more.
Chair Osman, thank you for your question. So in speaking with Inspector Torberg, who is the inspector for the 2nd Police Precinct, he reviewed again after he had signed the security plan for this business, for this operations in November. Upon receiving the complaints, he did review personally the calls, the 911 calls. We have very, very little 311 calls, so all of the calls are from 911, and it is his understanding of these calls that most are generated near and not necessarily about the location. He says he's got many calls that are where people have come to the gas station to make the call, or they have come to the gas station to meet the officers, or it is the most obvious location. So he is not seeing that the business is the nexus, it's just that they are there. So we are not seeing any evidence. As far as numbers go, I will have to get back to you with that when I speak
No,
with you.
that is really good information to have, where the calls are coming from. It's not just the business that's creating the issue, or the calls are coming from around the area. And I can imagine people going there to just feel safe, to call the cops. I can imagine that. Also, I would like to mention that we have been joined by Council President Payne, who represents that district. I'll recognize Councilmember Ellison. You are up. We can have Council President. Would you like to take a moment? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Osman, and thank you, committee members. And thank you, Councilmember Cashman, for carrying this amendment. I've had a number of establishments in my ward, and in fact, last year, I had another gas station under the exact same circumstances. They'd been operating 24/7 for many, many years. It turned out that they didn't have the appropriate license to have those operating hours. We were able to resolve that, especially after a huge amount of engagement from the community as a result of a homicide that had taken place at that gas station. And so there was a lot of community concern around what was happening in the overnight hours at that gas station. The resolution to that was getting the owners agreeing to security guards on the overnight hours. We had a similar circumstance with, some of you may have remembered, Mrs. Dessert. During Ramadan last year, there was a shooting near that establishment. When I spoke to that business owner, it happened down the street from his establishment, and he couldn't speak to whether or not they were his patrons. But he also agreed to do security for part of his extended hours application, and I think that was a good compromise. I'm looking to treat this similarly. I've had a lot of complaints from community. They don't want this to be 24 hours, period. But I do want to try to balance the community concerns with the need of the business to stay open. I think that having security is a reasonable compromise. And I know that staff had recommended that we reassess this in 3 months. I still think we should reassess this in 3 months and see how the overnight is going with that security, and see about maybe being more lenient. But at this time, I think it would be appropriate and just consistent with other establishments in the ward to be able to have this type of condition on the license. So I really appreciate your consideration.
Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you. Thank you. And Councilmember Osman, you may have gone over this already, but I know that there are conditions so far placed on the business, and my understanding is that this one was not able to be seen by the business. Have they agreed to this? Have we shown them this? Staffs, I'm seeing a no from staff.
Chair Osman, Councilmember Ellison, the business had made aware of this condition proposal this morning when I was made aware of it, so he has not yet agreed to it. We have had conversations in the past about the concept of license security. He has done a cost study on how much it would be, and he's prepared to do it in the spring and summer if it is required, but at this time, it would be cost prohibitive for the business to the point where he would need to consider to have to open the entire store up instead of just the service window in order to be able to afford it. And then, like I said, at this time, we are not seeing evidence that it's required for this cold months. We would readdress that conversation come warmer, but he was not made aware of the condition.
And so a business that has a service window at these hours would then have to open up entirely, which I feel like would defeat the purpose of what the intent of the neighbors, which is to see this footprint at least shrinked, if not all the way closed during these hours. I don't think I can support this condition today. I feel like today is my day where I'm pissing off all my colleagues who aren't on the committee, but I don't think I can support this today. I would want the business owner to be more involved. I would want to see, I'd want there to be, whenever you have a business that's out of compliance, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not always that folks are trying to pull a fast one. It's sometimes that we and everybody just sort of assumes that they're in compliance, and we find out that they're not. I don't know if that's the case here, but it seems like that could be the case here. We've got the business coming before us. They're trying to get in compliance, and I'm all for imposing more conditions when it is absolutely necessary. I get a little bit nervous when we're sort of forcing private security on every single business and every single apartment building. We've seen private security balloon costs in affordable housing to the point where it's becoming a bit of a crisis for our affordable housing providers. That's something that we haven't had to really contend with up here. But if a lot of people hit the streets and if we can't have affordable housing in the city because this cost has been incurred and it hasn't been appropriately planned for and people can't afford it, but we're demanding it and the community is demanding it, I don't know who's helped by that. I don't know who's ultimately kept safer by that. And so if at the end of the day we impose this and now and then the business has to shut down or has to open up more of its operation, and it opens up more of its operation and it brings more foot traffic, or it shuts down entirely and now it's a vacant property, I don't know who that helps. Either one of those scenarios, I don't know who that helps. Sounds like we have a business that's willing to revisit this in 3 months. Sounds like we have a stronger case to revisit this and compel it in 3 months and see if it's required. I think we should take that time and we should revisit it then. I don't think we should take this action today, especially when we've got a business owner who's finding out about this potential condition just this morning. And it's not a costless condition. So that's my view. I won't be supporting the amendment, but I will be supporting the underlying item. Yeah.
All right. Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you. So I will be supporting this amendment. I believe in listening to my colleague, President Payne, and I believe in listening to the neighbors, because that is who will be helped. It will be safer for the neighbors. One of the reasons perhaps why there's not as many 911 calls is because the police park their cars in there on a regular basis due to the violence and the guns that come through that neighborhood. So at the end of the day, we have to tell the truth, which is that unfortunately gas stations, ice cream shops, buses, trains have become places of violence, and we cannot accept that violence. I will be supporting this motion today.
Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Chair Osman. Definitely have seen gas stations be, a place that does attract some crime throughout the city. Not sure about ice cream shops on that one, but I will say that, operating a gas station all night is a privilege. It's not a right. Like, you don't just get permission to operate and sell gas 24 hours a day. That's not something that we grant all the time. So I think we are fully within, our rights as a council to put this condition upon that license. I'll just add that.
Thank you. And Clerk, we are taking the vote for the motion first, correct? For the amendment from Cashman, Councilmember Cashman. Okay.
On the motion of Cashman's, on Cashman's motion, Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Cashman.
Aye.
Jenkins.
Nay.
Chowdhury.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ellison.
No.
Chair Osman.
No.
There are 3 ayes and 3 nays.
That motion fails. Now, we are going to take the underlying motion for the item. Could you please call the roll? That makes sense.
Councilmember Rainville.
Could you please remind me what we're voting on, the underlying motion?
It is.
Okay, no, I'm reading it now. No.
Cashman.
No.
Jenkins.
Nay.
Chowdhury.
Nay.
Vice Chair Ellison.
Aye.
Chair Osman.
Aye.
There are 2 ayes and 4 nays.
Mr. Chair, because it's in a bit of a predicament, I believe that motion would have been to grant the license. So I don't know, the extended hours license. So it might be appropriate to move the matter forward to the full council without recommendation.
Yeah. I'll move the item without recommendation.
Please call the roll.
Rainville.
So I wanted to speak to the motion, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you. I agree with this to delay it and give the council president time to speak with the business owner. And I will be voting yes.
Are there anyone else who would like to, any members? Seeing none, clerk, could you please call the roll to move the item without recommendation?
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Cashman.
Aye.
Jenkins.
Aye.
Chowdhury.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ellison.
Aye.
Chair Osman.
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
Motion carries. Next item we have is a discussion item, an update for inclusionary zoning requirement in the Unified Housing Policy from evaluation conducted by the street level advisors. I will first welcome Haley M. to speak on this item.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Osman and committee members. My name is Haley McSparron, and I am a senior project coordinator on CPED's residential finance team. Our consultant, Rick Jacobus from Street Level Advisors, is also here, and we will be presenting our proposed updates to the inclusionary zoning policy. Rick will introduce himself during his part of the presentation. So before we dive into the proposed policy updates, I will give an overview of the current IZ policy and talk about what our policy review process looks like. And then I will hand the mic over to Rick, and he will dive deeper into the analysis and updates. So inclusionary zoning, or IZ for short, is an ordinance within the zoning code that has an associated policy in the Unified Housing Policy. The permanent ordinance and policy was adopted in 2019 and went into effect in 2020 to align with the adoption of the city's 2040 plan. The policy was created in partnership with city staff, consultants at Grounded Solutions Network, city council members, and developers. It requires that new market rate projects provide some level of affordable housing on site or provide another public benefit, such as paying a fee that goes into the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund program or the Minneapolis Homes program. The IZ policy was adopted to help create mixed income communities and diversify housing options throughout the city, as well as to increase the affordable housing supply, all of which are goals of the 2040 plan. Most development of new housing in Minneapolis occurs in amenity-rich areas with access to a variety of transportation options, jobs, goods, services, and recreation. At the time of policy adoption, there was an acknowledgement that the market alone would not deliver new affordable housing units to many of the city's existing residents, and that city intervention may be needed to support mixed-income housing. Inclusionary housing is intended to promote affordable housing and to fulfill the goals of the city's housing policies by ensuring that moderately priced housing is provided in mixed income developments. Shortly before the adoption of IZ, a study was published by BAE Urban Economics that examined the effects of market rate development on affordable housing supply. Using metro-wide data, the study found that the development of market-rate housing created a need for additional affordable housing above and beyond the existing gap in the affordable housing supply. The study concluded that it was appropriate to implement inclusionary zoning policies and require market-rate developers to help fill that need for additional affordable housing. A summary of this study is attached to the RCA to be filed and ratified. Since the study was published, other cities in the metro have successfully adopted IZ policies, including Edina, Bloomington, St. Louis Park, and Minnetonka. I want to emphasize that inclusionary zoning is just one tool that the city uses to create affordable housing. Other programs like the Affordable Housing Trust Fund are better positioned to address the need for deeply affordable housing and housing for those exiting homelessness, since public subsidy is involved in those programs. So IZ applies to new residential projects with 20 or more units that submit a completed land use application. This includes both rental and ownership projects. That said, currently, ownership projects and rental projects with 20 to 49 units, as well as office conversion projects since last fall, are exempt from IZ. When the policy was adopted, temporary exemptions were put in place for ownership projects and smaller rental projects because we knew that these types of projects would be more financially impacted by inclusionary zoning and therefore might need more time to adapt to the policy. To date, there are no ownership projects that are subject to inclusionary zoning, so the remainder of the presentation and our analysis will focus primarily on the rental market and requirements for rental projects. The rental IZ requirements include both on-site compliance options and alternative options. This menu of options offers flexibility to developers to choose what works best for their project. On-site options include providing 8% of units affordable at or below 60% AMI for 20 years, or 4% of units affordable at or below 30% AMI for 20 years, or 20% of units affordable at 50% AMI for 30 years with revenue loss offset financial assistance, which is TIF. Alternative options include paying a cash fee, or producing required units off-site, or donating land to the city. The IZ policy was designed to have minimal impact on the financial feasibility of market rate projects. Rick will go further into detail about the cost of compliance with these options on his slides. I'd like to point out that there is a great resource for inclusionary zoning, and that is our online dashboard that staff maintains to share cumulative IZ data. This dashboard is featured on the city's data source webpage and serves as a resource to staff, the development community, and the public about this work. As shown in the screenshot provided on this slide, to date we have permitted 25 large-scale rental projects that were subject to inclusionary zoning. These projects have collectively produced 248 affordable on-site units and 278 affordable student bedrooms. More details on the affordability levels and unit sizes in these projects can be found on the dashboard. The dashboard also summarizes projects that have chosen alternative compliance options like paying a cash fee and provides a snapshot of projects that are exempt from inclusionary zoning. This slide is another screenshot from our dashboard that shows the geographic location of projects that have complied with IZ and the compliance options that they have chosen. You can further explore the location of IZ projects by ward and by neighborhood when you toggle to the geographic summary view of the IZ dashboard. So now we will get into the policy review. For the past year, CPED housing staff, along with planning, development finance, and the city attorney's office, have been working with consultants at street level advisors to conduct a comprehensive review of inclusionary zoning, which is required by the Unified Housing Policy every 3 to 5 years. This review included a financial feasibility analysis to assess the financial impact of inclusionary zoning on rental projects, as well as developer interviews, peer city research, and an evaluation of how the program is administered. I will now turn the presentation over to Rick, who will introduce himself and talk about our analysis and proposed updates.
Thank you, Haley. Chair Osman, council members, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be back here talking about this. I am hopefully going to be able to control it. Yeah. I'm Rick Jacobus. My firm is called Street Level Advisors, and we work with cities around the country on housing, affordable housing policies. One of my areas of expertise is inclusionary zoning programs like the one you have here in Minneapolis. I wrote a book on this topic. I work with a lot of the cities that implement these policies, and I have a high-level overview of what's working and what the challenges are in different geographies. And I was also part of the team that worked with Grounded Solutions Network back in 2018 and 2019 when Minneapolis was setting up its policy initially. What I want to do today is just give you a little bit of the background and the market context from the research that we've just completed and share with you the findings from our feasibility study and then the recommendations that we came to. I want to say that to understand the market, we relied on interviews with local stakeholders, real estate developers and investors active in Minneapolis, many of whom would prefer that you didn't have this policy, but nonetheless leaned in and gave us their time and their data generously to make sure that we could really understand the policy so that you could understand the impacts of the policy. And so I want to make sure that we thank them for that cooperation. We have, I want to take you back a little bit to 2018 when we studied your market before and when we helped you develop the inclusionary housing policy that you have in place now. At that time, we developed a set of prototypes like the ones I'm going to show you in a few minutes of different apartment buildings, different rental projects in Minneapolis, and what the market rents would be and how affordable they would have to be. And at Council's direction, we set an affordability target for most of the projects at 88% of the units affordable at 60% of AMI. And what you see in this chart is the 60% of AMI rents were well below the market rate rents. And this is really the goal of all these inclusionary housing policies, right, is to sort of induce developers to create units that rent at a below market price. That's enough below market that we're serving people who wouldn't otherwise be served in new housing in the city. But to do that in such a way that the net impact on feasibility is small enough that the requirements don't become a reason that we don't get the housing built in the first place. And that balancing act is really difficult. And the council spent a lot of time trying to understand the economics of housing at the time we adopted the policy so that we wouldn't put too much of a burden on projects and so that we would get a meaningful amount of affordable housing. What's happened in the meantime is that the city and the broader region have permitted and built a lot of multifamily housing. And I think this has largely been the result of the sort of comprehensive set of steps that Minneapolis took to make it possible for developers to build and to build in more places, more types of housing. And the result has been a dramatic change in the amount of housing that's been built year after year over the last few years. One of the intended, I think, consequences of that is that rents have remained relatively flat in Minneapolis since we adopted the inclusionary housing policy. So you see the green line in this chart is rents going back to 2015 are not significantly higher than they were. But over that period of time, incomes have continued to rise. And so this is the reverse of what we see if you look back over the prior 30 years where rents were rising faster than incomes, in part because Minneapolis has done such a good job and its neighbors have done such a good job of permitting housing, we've been able to slow the growth of market rents in the city, and the city has become a more affordable place. It doesn't mean, however, that we've solved the affordable housing need. It just means we've slowed the degree to which things are getting worse. But when we look today at the market, what we see is that brand new buildings coming online are renting at rents that in many cases are at or just above the 60% AMI affordability level. So if you see on this chart, the light blue lines are the market rents that we found for buildings today, and the dark blue lines are the affordable rents. And for the studios, the affordable rent is higher than the typical market rent. For 1 and 2 bedrooms, it's below, but it's not below by as much as we originally had anticipated when the policy was adopted. And this is good news in broad strokes in terms of affordability in the city. But it means that we have to think a little bit differently about how the inclusionary policy works, and we need to make some changes. At the same time, the market conditions for building new housing have worsened significantly. It's gotten more expensive to build, and interest rates have spiked really dramatically. They've come down quite a bit, but they're still well above what they were back in 2019 when the policy was adopted. The result of that has been recently built buildings have been selling for less than it costs to build them. Developers are losing money in multifamily housing in Minneapolis lately. We also heard from the interviews that we did concerns on the part of investors about the potential for rent control in Minneapolis or concerns about crime and policing issues in Minneapolis, and I want to say we didn't independently verify that that's a real investor concern, but we heard it enough that I thought it's worth mentioning too, that there's a talking, a concern about the conditions for investment in Minneapolis, and it certainly is clear that there is less investment happening in new multifamily development in Minneapolis. Just to give an example, this is a project that was completed in 2014. The building cost $86.3 million to build, and it sold in 2023 for only $74 million. And what you can see in the small print there is that the rents in that brand new building, relatively brand new building, start at the levels that the affordable housing in the inclusionary policy are targeting, at 60% of AMI. Thank you. Different neighborhoods in the city have different rent levels. Different buildings are all different. There's not one type that stands for everything. But I think you can see different, the general trend has been toward more affordability. And in many parts of the city, the average rent is now below the affordable level that we set out. So in terms of our feasibility study, I just want to say what we did is we constructed a set of prototypes that are not necessarily represent every possible project, but sort of try to get at the typical project. What might a typical project look like? We looked at 5 different rental projects, a 3-story, a 6-story, an 8-story, and a 12-story brand new construction apartment buildings, and then a office conversion. And we looked at 3 different for-sale prototypes: townhouses, stacked condominiums, and a condominium tower. We compared them both on the profitability metrics. Like they use slightly different metrics for rental and for ownership, but we based on our interviews, we identified how profitable does a project have to be in order to get investment and move forward. And what we found was that for all of the rental housing prototypes, the projects that we constructed fell short of the profit levels that we felt would be necessary for a project to get financing and move forward today. They were not feasible. And what you see in the blue bars is how feasible the projects would be, what returns we would expect if there were no inclusionary housing policy. And in the orange bars, you see what would the returns be if we applied 8% at 60% AMI on site. And the difference between those is the impact of the inclusionary zoning policy. And I want to say, when you adopted the policy back in 2019, the modeling we did showed much larger differences, right? Because the rents were lower relative to market, the differential of profitability that the program had on projects was greater. So we have a small difference right now. We found the same thing for ownership projects, where most of the projects that we looked at were not only not profitable enough, they weren't profitable at all. They were losing money. We compared the cost of compliance on a per unit basis as well. And what this chart is showing is how valuable the building is per unit. You take the building's total market value and divide it by the number of units with different requirements. And so the first bar is if it was only a market rate building and there were no affordable units. The second is if we complied with the on-site requirement, again at 8% at 60. And the third is if they paid the in lieu fee. And again, you can see small differences as a result of the inclusionary requirement, particularly the on-site requirement. For the 6-story prototype, the difference comes out to a change in the value of the building of $2,600 per unit. That's about 1% of the value of the building. So the inclusionary policy reduces the value of this typical building by 1%. The in lieu fee reduces it by about 4.5%. We also looked at the cost of compliance on a per square foot basis. And again, you can see that the in lieu fee is significantly more expensive. It was calibrated, originally based on the on-site requirement, and the intention was to have it be an option, but not to have it be a lower cost option. And now it's significantly higher cost because the rents have come down. So lastly, I want to just say a little bit about what do we do with this information? Because if nothing is feasible, it's difficult to think about how what does that mean for the policy? So if we were doing this kind of analysis when the market was booming and everyone was building and there were cranes in the sky, we'd be looking at, are projects typically profitable enough to afford the inclusionary requirements, and could they go higher? Do they need to go slightly lower? And we'd be able to use the tool to test different options. But because everything is infeasible, and infeasible even if we had no inclusionary requirement, it's very difficult to do that type of thing. It's natural for a city to look at this data and say, well, maybe what we need to do is lower the inclusionary requirements because the market is down. And I want to say that we've seen cities try to experiment with that. It's actually fairly common for cities to try to respond to a downturn in the market by changing their policy. What we haven't seen is an effective approach. We haven't seen any city really come up with a way to do it that has worked, to get done what the city wants to do. And I just want to point to 3 different reasons. And one is this: Minneapolis provides incentives that offset, and in some cases more than offset, the cost of compliance. And so as a developer, you can change the planning rules. You can have different step backs or height limits. You can get waivers of permitting costs. And most importantly, you can access the 4D tax, property tax assessment savings if you include affordable units under the inclusionary policy. And those incentives for most projects cover much of the cost of compliance, and particularly the 4D cost, can pay more. I'm sorry.
Not to rush you, but we got to go a little faster.
Okay. So the last thing I want to mention is where cities have tried to adjust their requirements, they messed up the timing. It's very difficult to time the market properly. And so typically what we see is a city tries to lower their requirements going into a downturn, but by the time the requirements are adopted, the market's starting to recover. And then the building happens when the requirements are low. And then when the market comes back up, someone wants to lower it. So let me just quickly mention the recommendations. You've heard them before, but the first is we're suggesting that you add a new option to allow developers to serve 50% of median income instead of 60%, and to do slightly fewer units when they do that. This is an incentive to make it financially easier for developers to meet the market where the market really is right now. The next is to allow all of the options for student housing. The original proposal limited them to one option, and we don't see a reason for that. We're suggesting that you extend the phase-in for the smaller projects and also for ownership, that you continue to allow those projects to be built without the inclusionary requirements for now, but that you reconsider it when the market has recovered. And this just summarizes those changes, and you can see that the changes that we're recommending are very much stay the course. These are not dramatic changes. These are simple fine-tuning based on the changes in the market conditions. When the market recovers, what we'll hope you'll see is that these requirements are modest. They're not dramatic impact on the feasibility of development, and they do produce affordable housing. And so I'll stop here, and we'll take questions or comments.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. Just a reminder, we still have 3 items that are length to go, and we have about an hour left. So I'll recognize Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Chair Osman. This is a really important topic, so I'm going to ask staff if there is a reason why we need to rush this, or if it would be appropriate for me to move to continue this a cycle so that we can have a robust conversation and review these recommendations.
I see Director Alfred coming through.
Before Director Port comes, I think the rush is ours because of committee timing. So
yeah,
but otherwise,
but I remember when we
that.
had the 4D changes, it was really time sensitive for you to make those changes. Is there a reason for your department that you want to make these changes, within the next cycle?
Through the chair, Councilmember Cashman, the only challenge is the consultant is from out of state. So if we were to delay the cycle, we'll have to bring him back.
Yeah.
And so.
I mean, I would move to postpone this a cycle so that we can have more conversations. And I'm not, I feel like we could do some of the conversational work, virtually as well, that we wouldn't need to fly him back in 2 weeks' time to continue that conversation. But we as council members with our committee, with our constituents and with our stakeholders could continue the engagement.
Yeah, second.
Yep. Okay. Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you, and I agree. I would vote to move it to the next cycle. And in the meantime, I would ask our consultant, our expert, how your recommendations fit into this market where housing starts are just flat. Nothing's going on. There's no private development. I have 3 projects in my ward that I can think of right off the top of my head, and they're just stalled because of the high interest rates and the reluctance of investors to invest in Minneapolis.
Yeah, what we found is that the vast majority of the financial challenge that projects are facing is outside of the city's control. And it is tempting to address this one thing because the city can do something about it, but even if you eliminated the inclusionary housing requirements, none of the prototypes that we looked at would even be close to feasible. And we found that only 4% of the difference from the current returns and the feasible returns was the result of the inclusionary policy. And so every little thing counts, but what you're waiting for is for the broader market conditions to change. And when they do, you have a very modest requirement. And so what we're testing for is it still a modest requirement? The rents have come down to the point where the cost of complying is really quite low. As rents go up, it will go back up. But I don't think you can today really predict perfectly what kinds of changes there'll be in the future enough to know exactly what the right level would be in the future. So our advice is to keep a clear and consistent but modest policy and not to inflict on the market the uncertainty of a lot of changes, because that costs money also. And the image I want to convey is a landowner who's sitting on a piece of property a little bit attached to yesterday's market values, having trouble agreeing to sell at a lower price today when the market is down, who hears that the council is considering reducing this requirement, might feel like they could get more for their land, might hold out. And so what we want is for the land markets to absorb the cost of this inclusionary requirement. And in order to do that, we need to keep the requirements steady over time and predictable.
But how does your recommendation fit into the fact that nothing is getting built for market rate housing, which have the inclusionary zoning?
It fits in the sense that we are all stuck in a market that's boom and bust, and whenever the market is bust, we don't see development, whether or not we have inclusionary. So I don't know what else to add. You're right. That's the situation we're in. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you,
Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you. I mostly wanted to jump into maybe add on a little bit to this desire to continue the item. But I also wanted to say to the thank you for coming to present to us and give us this information. I think it's really valuable. And what I'm hearing, I mean, kind of in maybe this is lay terms, but what I'm hearing is, if we were to repeal inclusionary zoning or pause it or freeze it or whatever, we wouldn't see any changes on the ground, right? Buildings wouldn't suddenly start sprouting out of the ground. But when we're over this hump, what we would experience is less affordable housing. And so, I know that like there's always that urge to, you're hearing from folks who build and they don't want any regulation. And so it kind of is the nature of things. And so you're maybe, I know we're all hearing from folks who would just rather have no regulation. They'll take a win where they can get it. But we would as a council be dooming the future of affordable housing when we're in an upcycle if we were to repeal this or pause it or freeze it. And so I just really want to thank the consultant for your time here. I think, I'm open to some discussion here, but if staff is concerned about having to bring the consultant back, maybe I could offer my colleagues, could we do maybe 1 or 2 like info sessions between now and next meeting so that we're not learning everything up here on the dais, but that we can maybe come through with a little bit more observation as opposed to having to call you back and asking you every single one of our questions up here on the broadcast when we've got limited time. Would that be acceptable to my colleagues? Would folks be interested in doing almost like a study session in between? Okay, then I'll have my staff note that. I'll have Councilmember Osmond's staff note that, and we'll work to pull that together. Otherwise, I would support continuing this item.
We still continue. I see Councilmember Rainville again.
Yeah, so I want to ask one more question before you get out of here. I don't know when I'll see you again. So the
you.
last time we had this tremendous stoppage of market rate housing, which eventually becomes our affordable housing, it takes 10 years or so, was in 08, 09, 010. It just stopped right then. So many of the problems we're facing today were exacerbated by the stoppage of housing in 08, 09, 010. Do you see comparisons of the market today? A direct comparison, a little bit comparison? How is this like those conditions?
Yeah, I mean, I think the specific factors that are driving the slowdown are slightly different. Interest rates is playing a much larger role this time than it was then. Interest rates were very low then, relatively speaking. But the result is the same. The market freezes up because it takes a while for everyone to adjust their expectations. Rents, recover eventually, costs come back in line, and projects move forward. We see this exact same pattern in every city, and we see it going back, for decades, that there's just there's a tendency to have a boom and a bust cycle. Development gets enthusiastic, and you see a lot of building, and then those buildings compete with each other on rent, and the rents don't turn out to grow as fast as, hopes and dreams, and you end up with a few projects falling short, and it drives a down cycle. When costs rise, when interest rates rise, those things pile up, and you end up with a temporary shutdown of the market. We didn't find anything in our research that suggested you have a permanent change in the desirability of Minneapolis's market. Minneapolis is a growing and dynamic city. People want to live here. You've done a lot of things right. The market seems likely to rebound in the relatively short term. No one can predict exactly when or how that will happen.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to note that, condos have been exempted from this policy, and without an inclusionary zoning policy, it doesn't mean that we've seen a huge development of condos in the city. Like, there are a lot of other restrictions. And for me, it's really important that our multifamily buildings allow the opportunity for home ownership and wealth building. And so I see that you included LPM here. Well, that's 350 units of housing in my ward, and residents that are paying $1,000 or $2,000 of their salaries every single month. And so just, seeing in this packet that it was constructed for $80-something million and it sold for $70-something million, but that doesn't include the $5 million of rent that they do get from those residents every single year to pay for some of those costs as well. So I just would really like to see us, and I know this is kind of unrelated to the topic, but lean into purchasing options for renters so that they can put that money that they're paying for rent back into their own pockets. Kind of a comment here,
Yeah, no.
but do you agree that with the condo ownership that this hasn't been that barrier to building condo ownership or condo opportunities in Minneapolis?
Yeah, let me say, contrary to my answer to the last question, we did find that the conditions are, in some sense, permanently stacked against condo development, or maybe not permanently, but in a much more lasting way, stacked against condo development. And the primary concern that we heard over and over again is about liability and defect costs, that condo owners, the developers of condominium buildings, face a legal challenge that requires probably state law changes before you're going to see a large upswing in the condo market. Condos work at the very high end because they can cover a lot of costs, but middle income condos don't seem to be working in Minneapolis at the moment, and that was true also when we did the study in 2018. And there's no sense in which the inclusionary policy is affecting that because the policy is not being applied. And what you adopted originally was not to apply the policy until after the condo market recovered, and it hasn't recovered, and you haven't applied the policy. So inclusionary is in no way responsible for the challenges that the condo market faces. It's the market rate condominium project that doesn't work right now.
Thank you for sharing that, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
I believe we did postpone this item. Motion to postpone item, but we continue to have a discussion, so we're running out of time. Councilmember Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair Osmond. I'm just curious, there's this cash option. Are we seeing developers cash out?
Yeah, Chair Osmond and Councilmember Jenkins. I had shown previously on the dashboard, we have permitted 25 large-scale rental projects that were subject to IZ, and only 4 of those chose the in lieu fee option.
Thank you. And that money goes to the Affordable Housing
Trust Fund program, that's
Fund?
correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. With the motion to postpone, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the motion carries. Next item is a presentation about the use of algorithm in rental rates. I'll welcome Sarah Doctori from Minnesota Attorney General Office. Thank you for your patience. Welcome.
Assistance here. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Doctori. I'm an Assistant Attorney General with the Minnesota Attorney General's Office. And I am one of the attorneys that has brought a case under Attorney General Keith Ellison against RealPage and 6 of its alleged co-conspirators. And I'm happy to speak to the council about that case here today. I'm cognizant of time, so I can give a short background on the case and on the allegations. I will note, as we made the council aware, that given pending litigation, we are somewhat limited in what we can speak to. So in August of 2024, Minnesota, along with 7 other states and the Department of Justice, sued RealPage, alleging violations of Section 1 and 2 of the Sherman Act in the Middle District of North Carolina. We alleged agreements in restrictive trade related to information sharing and related to the decision to align pricing and attempts to monopolize or monopolization of the revenue management services market. RealPage moved to transfer and to dismiss. Their motion to transfer was denied and their motion to dismiss was mooted when plaintiffs filed an amended complaint. In January, this past January, plaintiffs amended their complaint to allow 2 other states to join and also named 6 of RealPage's alleged co-conspirators in this scheme. Those alleged co-conspirators are Camden Property Trust, Cortland Management, Cushman & Wakefield, along with Pinnacle Property Management, Gray Star Real Estate Partners, LiveCore LLC, and Willowbridge Property Management, formerly known as Lincoln Property Management. All but Camden Property Management Property Trust operate in Minnesota, and together the properties managed by these entities constitute a pretty substantial portion of the downtown rentals in Minneapolis. And there are other rental properties throughout Minnesota operated by these entities. So that's just a little bit of background on where we are in the litigation at this moment. And I'm happy to speak to some of the allegations about what specifically is alleged, what specifically RealPage and its conspirators are alleged to have done in the amended complaint. So RealPage, according to our amended complaint, is alleged to collect competitively sensitive data, competitively sensitive data such as rental applications, executed new leases, renewal offers and acceptances, forward-looking occupancy information, and to use all of this information in its algorithmic software to generate specific pricing recommendations for competing landlords. It does this with 2 products primarily, with its YieldStar product and its AIRM software, both of which are different types of revenue management software. It offers a 3rd product, but our case focuses primarily on these 2 revenue management software programs. RealPage is explicit about using this data in its pricing recommendations. So landlords are fully aware that their competitively sensitive data, we allege that these landlords are fully aware that their competitively sensitive data will be used in RealPage's software to generate pricing recommendations for their rivals. RealPage amasses its non-public, competitively sensitive data from competing landlords using a variety of mechanisms. One key one is that each YieldStar and AARM customer, client, shares lease level information nightly on each unit's effective rent, rent discounts, rent term, lease status, et cetera. So they are gathering this non-public, competitively sensitive information from the users of the software on a nightly basis that is then being used to train the algorithm and recommend prices to entities and their competitors according to the allegations in our amended complaint. They also gather information, competitively sensitive information, through a variety of other programs, including OneSite, performance analytics with benchmarking, business intelligence. These are a variety of products that RealPage offers. Basically, we allege that they sell different types of products, and they actually gather competitively sensitive information from many of the entities to whom they are selling these products, and then use that as they train their pricing recommendations for the people that buy that service, which is the AARM and YieldStar software. That's really the focus of the complaint. They also do market surveys. They just call people up and ask about their pricing, and generally there's a lot of information shared through that conduit as well, we allege. So the result of our allegations here is that in our view, RealPage's data is different than publicly available data in several different ways. They have information on actual transactions, on floor plans, listed rent, and then final transacted prices in a way that is simply not available in public data. They have information, the quality of information that they have on that is simply not available via public data. They have information on renewals, which is typically not listed privately, both offering prices and accepting prices. They have information on time span, or they have information really that goes back, years. They have information about future demand, so inquiries and applications that would typically not be available publicly, and they have much more accurate data. Their coverage is massive. So AARM and YieldStar, RealPage's two products that are the focus of this complaint, use this non-public competitively sensitive data to generate pricing recommendations, as we've discussed in our allegations. And they do that in a few different ways. AARM uses non-public data to train its algorithms to set floor pricing recommendations and to price particular units. YieldStar uses it to set floor pricing recommendations and to set unit level prices. So specifically with AARM, and AARM is the product that RealPage has indicated it plans to use going forward. YieldStar is being sunset, so I'll just focus for the sake of time on AARM here. We allege that RealPage uses this non-public data to generate improved learned parameters. So like the coefficient of a regression model takes this data and improves the learned parameters generated from non-public data that are then applied to recommendations made for a landlord-specific property. So that's, using this non-public data to train a model to then make a pricing recommendation. That's one of the allegations about AARM. Specifically, we allege with respect to floor price recommendations that RealPage uses peer data in nearly every phase. So identifying peers, forecasting occupancy and leasing, changing rent to match competitors, and determining the magnitude of price changes. So it uses this non-public data in a whole variety of senses when it's generating floor plan recommendations, and then also to determine unit level prices. And I'm realizing when you're not speaking this language, the difference between floor price recommendations and unit level prices. So unit price is shown in a price matrix with the price being set for combination start date and lease terms once the floor price plan has been set and accepted by the property's pricing managers. And so setting prices based on term like that helps with expiration management. So we allege that RealPage also uses competitively sensitive non-public data in helping generate recommendations, both for kind of the general floor level floor price recommendation and specific unit level prices, meaning including the term. RealPage, we allege, uses a variety of mechanisms to increase compliance with its recommendations. Among them, they quite literally make it easier to accept rather than reject pricing recommendations by making bulk allowance of recommendations allowed, but bulk rejections within their software are not. Auto acceptance is strongly encouraged we allege that auto acceptance is strongly encouraged and the default enabled when these entities, these alleged co-conspirators, are starting to use this software. And they also have a service called RealPage Pricing Advisors that I could speak more to if of interest to the council. So the question then is, what are the acceptance rates? How much is the use of this non-public data impacting leases? We allege that in between 2017 and 2023, within a 1% range of the recommendation, there were 40 to 50% acceptance ranges. Within 2.5% of the recommendation, so up or down, pretty close to there, 60%. And then within 5% of the recommendation, there were 80% acceptance rates. So those are the key allegations in our complaint. And again, we are alleging two different types of claims. One is for Section 1 agreements and restraint of trade, and the other is monopolization or attempted monopolization of this particular market. So with that, I'll say thank you for having me, and I'm very happy to answer any questions to the extent I'm able.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I do want to recognize Councilmember Wansley, who has joined us in the committee. I'll have Councilmember Wansley jump in, but before I do that, I do have a question. How long has this been going on, the system?
RealPage has operated for quite some time. I don't know their exact incorporation date, but I mean, they've been operating for many years.
For many years.
Yeah, this is not a new, they're generally not a relatively new company. I mean, at least 2017 is when we have good data about the impact of their pricing recommendation. I will say with most antitrust litigation, we allege there are specific markets alleged, and the ability to bring antitrust claims relates to market penetration in those markets alleged. So part of the nature of the concern is the prevalence of adoption of this software, and the ability of, we believe that we can now show the impact on the markets alleged.
Thank you. Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Osman. First, thank you, Mrs. Doctori, for the presentation. After learning about the Department of Justice case against RealPage last year, I immediately reached out to several of my colleagues, several of which are now my co-authors on an ordinance we're bringing forward, that including Vice Chair Ellison and Councilmember Chavez, to basically introduce an ordinance that would ban the use of rental algorithms on units in Minneapolis. And knowing that some of the property owners and management companies that you listed in the case are not only located in Minneapolis, but several are located in my own ward, specifically Greystar, and I've referenced this as well. And Greystar is one of the largest, I believe, property owners or management companies in the U.S. And I've heard stories from students about their experience, and I believe Councilmember Cashman has also shared on the days about stories you've heard from your own tenants too in their experience with that company as well. And just knowing that, this ordinance, independent of the lawsuits, really gives the city an opportunity to ensure that this harmful technology is essentially not a barrier to our city's goal of making sure that our housing market is both equitable and affordable to every single resident, because every single resident simply deserves housing. And I'm grateful that the AG's office is part of that coalition that's taking action to also make sure that our housing market is moving towards that direction, and also holding exploitive and bad faith actors accountable. And I'm excited to continue using the tools that we have available at the local action to complement the actions that you all are taking, and really looking at whatever we can do going further to make sure that we're addressing any extractive and exploitative practices that corporate landlords and developers are leveraging that are hurting renters and tenants here in Minneapolis, which I think is very timely in light of the conversation you all just had regarding inclusionary zoning in the future of our housing market. So again, thank you so much for this presentation. I'm really looking forward to the work that we do on this ordinance and excited to get it passed in the coming weeks. So with that, I know my fellow co-author wanted to share some words as well.
Councilmember Ellison.
Yes, thank you. And I know Councilmember Osmond asked, how long has this been going on? How long do you think this fight's gonna, I know that's a little, I'm asking you to bust out the crystal ball a little bit here, but, as we think about the ways in which antitrust sort of undermines consumer protections and folks are sort of, whether they quite know it acutely or not, they're sort of dealing with the consequences of these kinds of, what I would call violations. What do we think we're in for in terms of length of fight and all of that?
So I will say certainly, the mission of the office that I work for is to help people afford their lives, and that motivated the bringing this particular complaint. Civil litigation, which is what I do, and particularly antitrust litigation, is by nature quite slow. We're venued in North Carolina, so the judges there will make decisions about timing, but typically, it's antitrust cases in particular are very document heavy. They require experts. They require months to years of relatively detailed work, along with particularly given the number of plaintiffs and the number of defendants in this case. I would expect this, without having a crystal ball, and of course, cases move at different paces, this case will take some time.
Thank you. And, unfortunately, you caught us on a day where the committee agenda is really packed. I'm sure we could talk.
Fully aware.
I would love to educate my colleagues on antitrust and all this stuff, but I mostly just want to thank you for not only this work, but also the AG's office really has done a lot in the last couple of years around seeing tenant issues really as consumer protection issues. I think historically, what tenants are dealing with has kind of been considered its own relationship in another realm. And we've seen our ability to protect folks and keep them housed, be able to afford their lives. We talk a lot about, as a council, as a body, how do we make sure we're getting more affordable housing built? How do we make sure and I think that a lot less effort goes into, a lot of discussion, but a lot less policy goes into making sure that we're attacking affordability from every angle. This is one of those angles, and so thank you for all the work and the extended work on tenant protections that the state has engaged in.
Certainly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes, Councilmember Rainville.
Before you go, typically in cases like this, are there damages paid if found guilty?
There can be. It depends on the nature of the particular claims. So we are, currently, certain states are seeking damages and certain states are seeking injunctive relief.
Great, thank you.
Thanks again. See no further discussion. I'll ask clerk to receive and file this item. Okay, we have two more items to go. Item 16 is a presentation regarding food vendor location options and regulations, which came from a legislative directive. I will welcome Manager Amy Lingo from Business Licensing and Cindy Wickworth from Health Department. Thanks for being patient. Welcome.
Thank you.
we're sorting out timing here just because
Sure.
we've got an item that we want to give due respect to, and we've got limited time, so we're just discussing our options here.
Okay, well, thank you for being patient. What I would do is, as we took so much time today, we will postpone item 16 for next cycle and take item 17 now. And because we have people that have trouble here, that are here, so we'll take item 17, which is food vendor presentation. I welcome Minnesota Immigrant Movement for that presentation.
Council member?
That's good.
Okay. Council member?
Yes.
There has to be a vote on the postponement.
Oh, you're right, I'm sorry. All right, with that, postpone on item 16 for next cycle. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. All right, next, we'll have item 17, food vendor presentation.
I guess this is going
Yes,
over here.
welcome. The clerk can help if you need one.
Maybe. So this one like that.
Is that our stuff?
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Kay Carvajal Moran. I am a community organizer with the Minnesota Immigrant Movement.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jovita Morales, and I'm the founder of MIM.
And today we are here to share about Las Familias Emprendedoras Ambulantes in Minneapolis. And so the purpose of this presentation is to share the insights and information that the Minnesota Immigrant Movement, MIM, has gathered over the 7 months while working in and for our community of food vendors, from identifying challenges to setting goals. We aim to foster understanding and collaboration with a hope for positive outcomes moving forward. So about us, the Minnesota Immigrant Movement was started in 2008. It's a statewide grassroots nonprofit committed to empowering and united Latino community across Minnesota. We provide a safe space for Latinos to come together, raise their voice, and address the social challenges affecting our community. Through advocacy, solidarity, and collective action, we work towards a future where all Minnesotans have equal opportunities and rights. And over the years, MIM has broken down barriers and championed justice by uniting and empowering communities and amplifying immigrant voices. Our efforts have and continue to strengthen democracy and improve the lives of our communities across Minnesota.
Yeah, I think I got it. Thank you. So the food vendors demographic, through our meetings, we find out many food vendors identify as parents, including single mothers, families, and let me see, and also navigating differences, the system in here. we find out gender breakdown. We find more women's vendors than men's. We find out 8 vendors men's. We also learn about the citation issue. 7 vendors have received citation with fines ranging from 200 to 3,000. And also we find out and we learn a lot of people living in Minneapolis for varying lengths of time between 10 months and 5 years. We also learn a little bit about their incomes and estimation. Food vendors work on average 11 days a month. The average income for food vendors is less than $60 per day, totally approximately $600 monthly. We also learn about them, the language varies, that native language, they speak a different language than English. We also, I'm gonna make sure that we also learn about the challenge that they was facing. Limited access of work permit employment. Many vendors rely on work permit was one of the issue, not having a job. And imagine of not having an employment, that housing insecurity comes without stable home. Security housing becomes impossible, and also transportation limited, transit, and how to obtain a driver license or how navigate the city. Education barriers, we find out difficult access of school or education resources for their children. We also find our mental health faced with the trauma and limited access of mental health services, leaving them vulnerable to going emotional and psychologically challenge. We also learn about challenge about food, basic needs, which is food, clothing, practice, impacting daily well-being. Through this, also we find out the way that they was interacting outside selling food, the authority limit culturally competency, the lack of understanding and sensitivity to cultural differences. We find out the language various. Key city forms such as citation and application are often provided only in English, limiting access for non-English speakers. We're also learning about feeling of intimidation from the city of Minneapolis. A vendor have verbally expressing that unfair treatment through the operation of the city. Social cultural differences. Many vendors accustomed to selling food at their home countries face the shock the street vendor is seen as abnormal in the USA. And also we learn conflict policy and government regulations. Immigrants struggle to navigate a new government system with unfamiliar policy.
And so these findings, of course, were found through the time that we worked with the food vendors. So in May, we started to get to know the food vendors. So this process was slow, and it required phone calls, meetings, follow-ups, and consistency. And so through these interactions, we gain a deeper understanding of their identities, the challenges they face, and the traumas. And so being transparent, we did not succeed in building relationship at the beginning. The food vendors did not have trust and were scared to interact. And so in August or September, we continued that relationship building with the food vendors, and we seek for resources for them. So in that search, we learned that we learned from the city initiatives, which were inspectors who were working closely with the food vendors. So we invited inspectors to the community outreach at community centers and for them to provide trainings. And at the end, we learned that challenges came up. And so there were 10 participants, but out of those 10 participants, only 2 were food vendors. There was literacy challenges, as Jovita mentioned. Many of the food vendors do speak a different language that is not English. And the length of the classes led to low attendance. And so in October, a community member witnessed a food vendor being cited, and so this led to an emergency meeting, which we gathered with the affected family members, other food vendors, MIRAC, MEME, Wards 9 and Ward 12, and so we gathered to identify what vendors were experiencing and if it was the same. And so in this meeting, there was also other food vendors that shared feelings of intimidation of the city. And so this resulted into this food coalition. And so it was established to address this issue. And in November, we collectively sent a letter to the city of Minneapolis to engage directly with the community and to hear their stories. And on November 17, a productive and impactful meeting was held between food vendors, Minnesota Immigrant Movement, and city officials. And so with this tone in mind, that brings us here, January. So we want to continue working on bridging that relationship with the city and food vendors, and most importantly, focusing on equity. And creating a group that has healthy and intentional conversations for both vendors and the city share values and goals that are reflected. And we want to work on an ordinance and program that will allow food vendors to successfully and safely work in our city.
And basically, the conclusion out of those meeting and the way that we've been working is through that relationship is we are building between the vendors and the community and the city, working with administration, council members, the health department, the parks, and all. We aim to ensure that the voices of food vendors are heard and acknowledged. We seek the implementation of a food vendors program that meets the needs of our community while providing a successfully pathway for our communities. And this is including accessible permits, post-ordinance support, or training and resources. We need to rebuild a trust between the communities and the city by addressing cultural competency, education, and financial barriers. This process hasn't been easy, but we must learn from our challenges and respond proactively and productively to create meaningful change. And with this, I will say muchas gracias for hearing the story of the vendors. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I do want to recognize we have been joined by Councilmember Chavez. Also, I want to remind the members that we did postpone item that will give us more details of where the city stands and City of Minneapolis food vendors and safety and regulations and so on. So any questions that come up with that, we can have those questions answered by next cycle. I do have one question that I'll pass it to the members. What improvement or the changes on the current situation, food vendors, like when it comes to permit process, what are the specific things that those people that are selling are looking for the city to do?
What they're looking for is I make the conclusion that they want a permit to have access to selling the food or the fruit that they are selling outside, but with the requirements that the health department provide.
Sure. Okay, I'll recognize Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time, not only to just organize this presentation and come before this committee to share the experience of food vendors, but also just to the members here in the body, as Councilmember Chavez and I are working on the ordinance around food vendor licenses, specifically looking at a lot of our immigrant community members and new entrepreneurs in our city. This is one issue that, in order for us to do good policymaking work, we need to rely on the experiences of the food vendors, right? And Minnesota immigrant movement has been hugely helpful in being a bridge between food vendors, the city of Minneapolis, and council members in order for us to best communicate and talk through what policy changes we need to make. Because at face value, it might seem simplistic. It's like create a specific license or change different conditions. But as the presentation really showed, there's a high need for cultural competency through the work that we're doing, right? Communication around training for food vendors, where people are at. There needs to be a level of trust that occurs between the city of Minneapolis, us as policymakers, and the food vendors themselves. So we really wanted to encourage this presentation. So we're actually centering the voices of the people who are most impacted, and that you had the full context with us as we move through the legislative process. And that's just where I'll conclude. I'm looking forward to the discussion that we're going to have as colleagues together in the coming months, and also just really appreciate our city staff for walking through this legislative and community journey with us. We have had several meetings from the time that we noticed this up until this presentation, and there will be many following that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Chair Osman, Jovita, Kai, y la comunidad. Muchas gracias por venir a hacer esta presentación. Es bien importante. Estoy bien feliz que vinieran hasta aquí a City Hall, y ya sé que para nosotros, yo y Councilmember Chaudhry, es bien importante que podamos pasar esta ordenanza para que ustedes puedan tener su permiso para que puedan vender su comida en la calle. Entonces, nomás quiero decir muchas gracias por venir aquí en nuestro trabajo, porque ese es el trabajo que tenemos que hacer para ustedes. Es bien importante. Chair Osman, I just want to make sure I spoke in Spanish because I think it's important to acknowledge residents here who there's language barriers as well. So, Chair Osman, Vice Chair Ellison, thank you so much for allowing our community members to be able to present this presentation today. I think it's really important to acknowledge the human element of doing this work, and I think hearing the perspective from our food vendors, from Jovita, from Kay, being able to present today is really critical as we advance this ordinance moving forward. I think one thing is clear is that we have had very productive conversations with our city staff, very productive conversations with community, and I think there's an opportunity here, and I'm really looking forward to the presentation next cycle from staff on the ways that we are going to continue working together to advance an ordinance that's ultimately going to get people into compliance, abide by the safety regulations, but also expand access to these permits to make sure that our residents are able to get these permits, being able to do this job, being able to do the work that they want to do. So I'm just very excited, very happy to see this presentation that is from our community in a very important time in our country, quite honestly. And I just want to make sure that I thank the folks for coming down to City Hall, because it's not easy getting down here. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm seeing no one else. Oh, I see Councilmember Allison. I'm sorry.
You're all good. Yeah, thank you, Jovita and Kay. Thank you guys for being here to give us this presentation. And I think so much of what we talk about here is so technical. We're talking about compliance. We're talking about, these things. But for you all to be here, for you all to bring folks from the community here, I think it really lets us know, who are the faces behind the issue. And I think the same goes for compliance, right? It can be the city, and that can be, capital C city can be very scary, but then to see the folks who actually do the regulating out in community, and I think building that bridge and building that connection, I think is really important. I wanted to ask, just because I don't want to have the final word here, but I wanted to ask you guys, what how can council, I think, how can council members like us, not just, I don't want it to be all on Councilmember Chavez and others, but how can the council as a whole, because we know that we have immigrants in every single ward in our city. We know that folks are trying to do business in every single ward across the city. How can we be better involved or more proactively involved in making sure that as we're having this discussion about compliance, that we're engaged in providing dignity, safety, and sort of bridging some of those cultural and language divides that might exist between staff and the community?
Thank you for that question. It's super, super important to let you know that there is a lot of leaders around that it's grassroots in organizing their own community, their own wards, that we need to go on those meetings and events where you can engage the differences community that we live in Minneapolis, because it's a diversity community, a cultural, so beautiful that we have the Somali community, the Latinos community, the Native community. There is Asian community, among communities that we have around Minneapolis that we need to engage them. We need to have a space for them and be with them and learn what their challenge is and how to build that relationship and build whatever necessity that they are facing, collaborating each other. It's a way to come and bring them to the city and learn more about how the system works, because I think it's important to each one of the city council member going to those community. We respect everybody that it's a nonprofit and have a credibility really high, but also we need to understand that there is a lot of grassroots leaders that really do the work. Thank you.
Yeah, well,
And to add to Jovita, another thing is if y'all have capacity arranging the schedules. I know for many of the food vendors, schedules vary from like a 9 to 5, and so for many food vendors, that's a whole different schedule. So if y'all have capacity, like meetings, like on Sundays, Saturdays, I know that's a lot, but I know that, again, if we are going to get into this cultural competency, there's different schedules, and I know that for food vendors and so other folks, there's that schedule, so just keeping that in mind. So yeah, thank you.
Well, absolutely. Thank you all for your advocacy and for, bringing this issue to us in a real way. And I look forward to engaging, being more hands-on in this conversation with my colleagues who have been leaders in this. And so I really want to appreciate them. And compliance and food safety and all those technical things are really important, but also our, one of the conduits of culture. And we have a very diverse, as you said, Jovita, a very diverse city, rich with culture. Food's a big conduit of culture and how we get to know each other and how we build with one another. So just want to thank you all for your advocacy, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. And someone who is an immigrant, myself, I really appreciate you standing up for those folks that have a lot of barriers. Coming to a new country is it's already a challenge. And I look forward working with you. Please feel free to let us know how we can work. And our staff also is wonderful, and they will be willing to sit down and work and talk about the compliance deck, making sure that the residents that live in Minneapolis are served the best way we can. So thank you so much. All right. Seeing no further action, I'll ask the clerk to receive and file for that item. All right. Thanks, everyone, for being patient. Seeing no further business before us, with no objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned.